Good afternoon, Ken Arzon here, doing another video on my top 50 for my YouTube channel. I've done the top 50 offensive baseball players of all time. My second video, the top 50 pitchers of all time, according to my analysis and my opinion. Then I did the top 50 movies of all time, my top 50. Then I did another video on my top 50 television shows of all time. Then I did the top 50 movie actors of all time, according to my list. And then I had to do the top 50 actresses of all time. I have other videos also. I did baseball records. I've done 17 individual achievements by baseball player in one day. I've done baseball photographs. I've done videos on my landscaping business. I'm retired right now. Did an autobiography. I wrote a book called Life Gardening 43. I've done videos on how to maintain a lawn, a video on how to use a weed eater, a video on how to use a chainsaw. So it's been fun. It's a little hobby I have going in retirement. I worked 43 years in the business, my own gardening business. I retired in 2017. So it's good to have some hobbies. This video is going to be unique. Let's see how it goes. My top 50 vacation spots of all time that I've accomplished. Let's see how it goes. Countdown from number 50 all the way to number 1, my favorite vacation spot. My top 10 will be the ones that I really like, the places that I visited and the vacations I've taken. From 50 all the way down to number 10, those 40 vacation spots can be interchangeable. Don't have any favorites. I just list them, places I've been. Some will be better than others. But all in all, let's see how this video goes, okay? Bear with me, as I mentioned a lot of cities, a lot of things I've done. See if you're interested. I've traveled a lot. When I was younger, I lived with my family in Chicago, Illinois. We took vacations, camping, went to parks. Then when I got married, the first 3 years, I didn't have any children, took some vacations. Then I had 4 kids. We took them all on vacations. I believe it was about, out of 20 years, we did 20 vacations. A lot of memories, I have a lot of photographs. And then in retirement, I would say since my 4th child moved out of the home, my wife and I have taken a lot of vacations just by ourselves. Cruise ships or flying to a city and staying in hotels. We've taken a lot of cruises. I believe we're up to about 16 cruises on the West Coast, the northern United States, the East Coast, the southern United States, the Caribbean, and then up in the northeast part of the U.S., we've taken cruises in New England. And then we've taken a cruise up into Alaska, and then we've taken a cruise into Hawaii. Haven't been to Europe yet. I don't know when we're going to do that. But the year right now is July 2020. And we're going through a ridiculous virus that's keeping everybody at home. We can't travel as much as we want to. All right, here goes my video. My top 50 vacation spots. Let's see how it goes, okay? Number 50 on my list, Oxnard, California. What's significant about this place? Well, my father provided 10 family reunions at the Embassy Suites in Oxnard, California. He had 8 children, and he invited them all to come for a family reunion for 3 to 4 days. It's usually in the summertime. First one was in 1993, and then we had 10 of them. The last one was in 2007. Those are a lot of memories. The Oxnard Embassy Suite is right on the ocean, and the rooms are extraordinary quality rooms. Nice swimming pool, buffet breakfasts, quality dinners, steak dinners. So I put Oxnard, California is number 50 on my list as a favorite vacation spot. We also visited Ventura, California, and also Channel Islands National Park is out in that area. Also on the way there, you can stop by and see Carpinteria, which is along the coast. So how about that? Number 50. Number 49, Warren Dunes State Park in Michigan. This was a vacation I took with my family when I was about, I'd say 7 years old. It's in Brigham, Michigan. What's famous for this park is sand dunes and lakeshore beaches. It's a popular spot. We would camp. My father had a station wagon, and we camped many times. Pitch a tent, and there were 6 kids at that time, my mother and father. We had propane stoves, cooked breakfasts. Warren Dunes State Park comes in number 49 as on my favorite vacation spots. Okay. Also in Michigan, there is Pikes Peak. We visited there along Lake Michigan. Our family lived in Chicago at that time, so we were able to drive out there. There's also another landmark spot called Tower Hill. So there's slopes, sand dunes, beaches. During the I think this vacation was in 1960. That would have made me 6 years old, turning on 7. Okay. Counting down, number 48 on my list, Lunington State Park in Lunington, Michigan. This is another family vacation that I took with my parents. They have lighthouses, wetlands, marshlands, forest. It's right near Lake Michigan, Lunington, Michigan. You know, the park has fishing, paddling, tubing, hiking. Those are fun. You know, those times a lot of people took camping trips. They didn't fly, they didn't take cruises, they didn't take trains. They just drove their car, went to parks, and pitched a tent. How about that? Coming in 48 on my list, Lunington State Park in Lunington, Michigan. That would have been around 1961 when I was 7 years old almost. Okay, 47 on my list. There's a state park in Andover County, Ohio, called Pymaturian State Park. It's about 1,400 acres. It's on a lake. There's fishing, there's boating, camping. Oh, this is it's close to the Canada border up there in Ohio. It's a lot of geese, 20,000 Canadian geese. Our family took another camping trip there. So that's when I was about 7.5 years old. But I remember it. So Pymaturian State Park in Andover, Ohio. comes in at number 47. 46. This would have been 1962. I was 8 years old. I was born in 1954. So in 1962, I would have been 8. Finger Lakes State Park in Hector, New York, comes in at number 46 on favorite vacation spots. It's a unique area, scenery, forests, trails, wineries. There's Cayuga Lake. You go and just kind of stream along the lake, do some hiking. The Finger Lakes area in upper state New York is very picturesque. You got Lake George is a town up there, forests. You got Million Dollar Beach, one of the beaches. Picnic area, boat launches. Again, we just took our station wagon and did some camping. Unique area, the Finger Lakes. Check it out. Okay, number 45 on my list. Fort Tigaronga. Where is this? It's in Fort Carillon, upstate New York. It's near Lake Champlain. We just went camping, stayed at the state parks. There's Pelee Island near Ontario, Canada. It's on the western half of Lake Erie. We did some camping, hiking, fishing, natural springs, sandstones, spectacular overlooks. A lot of vegetation, a lot of wildlife in the area. Also, on these trips, we stay a couple days at the state parks. And then we entered the state of Wisconsin. There's a place called Wisconsin Dells. And these are just land, marshes, and you drive and you get out, you walk on the trails, and there's a lot of wetlands. And then you arrive to sand dunes. So you imagine little kids going up on the sand dunes and then just kind of paddling down on a sled. And then you jump into the beaches and do things like that. So 45 on my list, put Wisconsin Dells, Starved Rock State Park, Pelee Island, and Fort Tigaronga. New York, Ontario, and then you swing into Wisconsin right there. So a lot of driving. Also, you go through Michigan. Okay, 44 on my list. Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Sprawling landscape, forests, wildflowers, everything blooming. You got streams, rivers, waterfalls, hiking. You can hike along the Appalachian Trail. There's some domes, high peaks. There's an area called Cumberland Falls. It's called the Little Niagara. It's just south of the Great Falls near Corbin, Kentucky. Again, this was a family vacation with my parents and my sisters around 1962. Okay, 44 on my list. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Counting down, 43. Vasquez Rocks in northern Los Angeles County. What happened? 1962, our family moved from Chicago, Illinois, and we took a 3-day train ride out and relocated into Granada Hills, California, a suburb of Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. And there's an area in the northern part of Los Angeles called Vasquez Rocks National Area Park. It's about 900 acres. It's got all these formations. If you ever seen some of the Star Trek movies or Western movies, they do a lot of filming up there because the monolithic rock formations. You know, a cowboy goes up to the top of the rock and have a big battle with an Indian, and they fall off the rock. Well, we visited these areas. In fact, I saw a movie set one time there. The Wild Wild West TV show was filming, and Robert Conrad, who played James West, I got his autograph. I'm just a 9-year-old boy, and I was watching the filming, and after they were done, he was signing autographs. I walked up, and I got one from a movie star, television star. Remember the show, The Wild Wild West? So we visited those areas. They say these formations are millions of years old. A lot of animal fossils. So that 43 on my list, Vasquez Rocks National Area Park in the Agua Dulce area between Santa Clarita and Palmdale, California. Okay. Number 42 on my list, Placerita Canyon State Park. This is near the beaches on the western side, west coast. It's in the San Gabriel Mountains. It's in the rural areas of Los Angeles County. This, again, we would go there, my family, say about 1963, 1964. We went, you know, a lot of trees, willows, sycamores. We would go to the park, do some hiking. And then close by is the beaches. And our family loves Zuma Beach, located along Pacific Coast Highway near Malibu, California. And Santa Monica California is along that area too. So in the summertime, we go to the beaches. So 42 on my list would be Placerita Canyon, Zuma Beach, and Malibu, California, and Santa Monica, California. Okay, counting down, number 41 on my list, Anaheim, California. Of course, what did we do in 1964 that was historic in the Artizone family? We visited Disneyland for the first time. Very unique. You know, the park opened in 1955, so by 1964 it was already 9 years old. They had all the rides going. Would you believe the admission was $4.95 for adults, and $3.95 for kids. But at that time, they didn't have as many rides and attractions. They had about 15 rides in the park. So your $4.95 ticket was just a booklet of tickets, and you'd visit Tomorrowland or Adventureland or whatever. And you can just visit it once. You couldn't just go back and back and back. So in those days, we visited Disneyland. I remember the car rides, the monorail, Mr. Toad, Abraham Lincoln, Tom Sawyer, Jungle Cruise, the Matterhorn. Yeah, our family did that in 1964. I was 10 years old. Anaheim, California comes in at number 41 on my list. Number 40, Knott's Berry Farm. This is in Buena Park, California. It's just a thrill park, 35 rides, you know, for kids, families, water rides, historical rides. Knott's Berry Farm, 160 acres, amusement park in those days. We visited. Also in that area is Universal City and Universal Studios Hollywood. That way back then, that's where they filmed a lot of the movies and television shows. But the park wasn't built up as much then. Later on, when I was older as an adult, I visited that park again. They had really expanded all the rides, Jurassic Park, so forth. And also included in this area is Los Angeles Dodger Stadium. My dad took me to a game when I was 10 years old. I remember that. That was a thrill ride. So that was a vacation spot that I remember as a kid. So number 40 on my list, Knott's Berry Farm, Buena Park, Universal City, Universal Studios, and Los Angeles Dodger Stadium. And you had Griffith Park up in that area too, observatory. Number 39 on my list. Again, living with my parents, we took a trip up to Yosemite National Park. Now, why would you say Yosemite's so high on the list? Again, my countdown between 50 and number 10 are interchangeable vacation spots. So I'm listing Yosemite right here. Our first trip up there, we stayed in mini cabins, mini sheds. They were at that time. This would be about 1965, 66. I remember you have the picturesque canyons and waterfalls. One of the waterfalls you can take a trail up is called Brydale Fall. And that is a steep walk going all the way up. But as an 11, 12-year-old, I made it all the way to the top, no problem. You have El Capitan, Half Dome, Yosemite Village. You got the Adams Gallery photographs. So we visited Yosemite National Park with my parents and my sisters and brother around 1966. Would have been 12 years old. Later on, when I got older, I went with my family, took my kids to Yosemite, and we repeated all the same things all over again. Okay, number 39, Yosemite. Number 38, Sequoia National Park. From Los Angeles to about Sequoia, about a 4-hour drive. This is where you have the giant redwoods, thousands and thousands of years old. They say one of the redwood trees was older than Christ. And Christ, Jesus Christ, was 2,000 years ago. So we saw that, visited the museum, took the hikes, got tunnel trees. We camped, we had a tent back in those days. 66, 67, right in there. Okay, Sequoia, number 38 on my list. That's up in the Central Valley, near Fresno. Up in that area, you've got Tulare, Visalia, and then you go up in Central Valley. Not too far from where we live, because we lived in the San Fernando Valley, which is Granada Hills, California. So get in the car and drive up. You have to go over the Grapevine, and then you go down and you take Highway 99, and then you get up into Sequoia National Park. Famous for the redwoods, Sequoia redwood trees. Thousands of feet tall and thousands of years in age. 37 on my list. First time I visited Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. Oh, that is unique. You know, looking at the geological history, millions of years old of all the formations. I went there in 1970, with just my dad and my brother. We drove out there. We stayed in the famous Grand Canyon Lodge, and we took a mule ride. You rent a mule, and you go down into the canyon and arrive at, where is that point? Let's see, Phantom Ranch. You get on a mule, you go down a path for about 3 hours. That's a dangerous path because there's no rails. And when you're on the mule and you look to your left and you look down, and it's hundreds of feet down and you into the canyon, you say, "Yikes! Please, mule, don't fall off." So it's a little scary, but we made it all the way down to the lodge or to the ranch. We jumped into the Colorado River, which was 100 degrees, the water. And we stayed overnight, and then you come up the next morning on the mule, come all the way up. So that was in Grand Canyon National Park. First time there was in 1970. I would have been 16. In fact, my dad let me drive the car. It's kind of a fun trip. Okay. That was number 37 on my list. Number 36, vacation spots. San Francisco, California. I got married in 1976, so I was 21 years old. My honeymoon with my wife, we went to Bakersfield, and then we drove up to San Francisco, had a hotel, saw the Golden Gate Bridge. And then we headed south and went down Highway 101. We visited Monterey, and you have San Luis Obispo, you have Santa Maria, San Simeon, Santa Barbara. That was our 7-day honeymoon vacation. So that would have been in 1976, shortly after I got married. 35 on my list. Okay, these are 36 San Francisco and our honeymoon. 35 Monterey, California, which is on the west coast. You know, it's rugged. It's got museums and aquariums. The Monterey Bay Aquarium is famous. Marine animals, plants. Then you go down in the Carmel Valley, which is very picturesque. We stayed in the hotel there. And then I mentioned San Luis Obispo. This is another trip we took on the 101 highway. Santa Barbara, San Maria, San Simeon, that's where they have Hearst Castle. So I recommend that trip if you ever fly into San Francisco or if you're ever in the area with your car. Go west and hit Highway 101 and go down from that all the way down to Santa Barbara and get into Los Angeles. That's a very unique vacation trip. So I recommend that. That comes in at number 35 on my list. Okay, 34 on my list. Tijuana. After I lived in Los Angeles after I got married for about 5 years, and then I relocated, sold my business, my gardening business, relocated to San Diego, California, and bought a house. That would have been 1979. And when you're in San Diego, you're close to Tijuana. So this comes in as a vacation spot. We drove across the border, did some shopping in the area, got the Avenida Revolutionary Plaza there, shops, got the Zona Rio District. And then we drove around and went south and went to Rosarito Beach. Very picturesque. Mexico is a very beautiful country. It's just that the politicians don't know how to handle their politics, and so there's a lot of corruption. But the country of Mexico is beautiful, and the beaches are unmatched. So you got Rosarito Beach. We went down there, and then you go down farther south, and you get into Ensenada, very pretty town, shopping. And then one time with some friends, we went all the way down to San Quintin, Mexico, which is 197 miles from San Diego. That was a trip. That was a crazy trip. Because when we got to checkpoints, the military had their rifles out. And if you made one wrong move, you got shot. Also, no water down there. When you're on the highway, and you're hoping for a convenience store, not like California, no 7-Elevens, nothing. So you had to bring your own water and food. But we made it down to San Quintin, which this is a Mexican village. Why I went all the way down there, I don't know why. But you see the Mexican village, a few shops, you turn around and you drive back home 197 more miles. Dumb trip, Ken. You stop at the gas station, and you have Mexican military guards with rifles and holsters and guns. And if you looked at them wrong, you got shot. Ooh, the cartels. I don't know how I survived that trip, but we did. That comes in at number 34. Crossing the U.S. border and going into Mexico for the first time. Crazy. Number 33 on my list. Phoenix, Arizona. Now, this is my wife and I hadn't had kids yet. Or did we have? Not yet. So we drove out to Phoenix. It's about an 8-hour drive from San Diego. And we saw the Valley of the Sun. I remember it's so hot. Don't go in the summer. It's 110. And then at night, it's 92. We drove by, went over to Tucson, did some shopping. But the area I liked up there in the Arizona area was Prescott, California. That has mountains and the weather's cooler. Thought about moving there once, but never did it. Okay, number 32 on my list. Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, I've been there many times. First time I went there, though, I had kids with me. So we didn't do much of the gambling on the Strip. We saw the Strip, drove up and down. But what we did was we went over to Hoover Dam, which is in Boulder City. And you visit that. That's a marvelous architectural marvel. And then we went to Carson City and we drove around into Reno. Up there they have the Bonanza Ranch, the Bonanza TV show. So we visited there. Like I said, the Las Vegas trip, the first one, which is casual, I've gone many times after that with my wife. Stayed in the hotels there and went into the casinos. We stayed at Harrah's, and what was the other one? We just recently went. Boy, I can't remember. But yeah, we visited them all. MGM, the Egyptian one, and you have Bally's and the Venetian and Caesar's Palace and Circus. And I saw the Trump Hotel too there. So we've done a lot of visiting in Vegas in recent years. But number 32, Las Vegas. Number 31 on my list, San Antonio, Texas. That's where they have the Alamo, the big battle. You got the River Walk. Went there. My sister Frances was living there. And I had 2 kids. I drove from California out to Texas, which is 1,500-mile trip. They put us up. So we did some stuff, with them, went out to eat, shopping. Then we went down and visited Houston, Texas. Saw the Space Center, NASA. Then we stopped by and saw the Smithsonian Museum, Johnson Space Center. Then we visited Austin, state capital. On the way, and then we kind of drive around Texas for a while. Later on, one of my vacation spots, I went to Dallas, Texas, where the JFK Museum is, where you have De La Plaza. And you have where JFK got shot by Lee Harvey Oswald up in the building. The book depository, I saw that spot, visited there. And you have the grassy knoll. And was there someone hiding behind the wall that shot the president? Or was it just Oswald up in the book depository building on the 6th floor? I visited the 6th floor and I saw the spot where Oswald fired his rifle and hit the president when he was on his motorcade coming down Elm Street. And I visited Elm Street and I saw the exact spot. I saw it all. Dallas, Texas. And then we drove down in one of these later trips. We went to Fort Worth, where my son Mike lives. And we went to Arlington. That's where they had the Texas Rangers. Went to a baseball game, Arlington, Texas. Drove around into Irving, too. So Texas is one of the vacation spots that I've been to. And I'm going again in August to see my son Mike and his wife Christy, and they have a son named Zachary. Did I mention I have 7 grandkids? Okay, number 30 on my list, Lake Tahoe. My sister Sue got married up there on a boat. So we went through there. That is a beautiful lake, dark blue. Emerald Bay State Park is up there. Let's see, it's right on the Nevada border, Lake Tahoe, right there. Picturesque. And then from there, we've driven down and seen Sacramento, California, seen the state capitol. My daughter right now lives in Stockton, California. So 2 times a year we fly into Sacramento and drive down and see her in Stockton. So we do a lot of sightseeing there. You've got the city of Lodi is there. So Lake Tahoe, Sacramento, Lodi comes in at number 30 on my list. 29, or the state of Oregon. You've got Portland, Oregon. We've seen that. Salem is the capital city. We've seen Crater Lake National Park. That's a unique area right up there in the Cascade Mountains. You got Mount Mazama. So that's up in Oregon. Too political up there. Too many riots in Portland. So I stay away from Oregon. But the west coast of Oregon is very picturesque, and I've never gone through there. Plan to maybe one day. Okay, 28 on my list. Seattle, Washington. I've flown in there a lot of times and taken cruises. And then from there you go all the way up into Alaska. When I get into the top 10, Alaska's in the top 10. But right now, just for number 28 is Seattle, Washington. They've got, beautiful mountains, evergreen forests. It's one of the prettiest cities in the country is Seattle. They've got the big fish market, and you got a lot of shopping right along there on the main street in downtown. You got the Space Needle, we've seen that. Mainly when we go into Seattle, that's where we hop onto a cruise ship. We've driven around the state of Washington. We've seen Yakima, Ellensburg. Haven't been to Spokane, that's way east. But Seattle, Washington is known for the forests and the rain. Oh, the rain keeps everything green. I don't think there's anything brown in the city of Seattle. Everything is lush green. Compare that with California, you see a lot of dead tumbleweeds and brown landscapes. But you go up to Washington, they get so much rain up there. Everything is green. Lush green. All right, 27 on my list, state of Idaho. You visit Boise, Idaho, famous for the potatoes. I went into a restaurant and I said, all right, I want to see how good your potatoes are. They brought me a baked potato. And was it as good as it was in a baked potato in California? In Idaho, the potato tasted better than it did in California because that's where they grow them. It was softer. The potato was softer. Here in California, the potatoes are harder. All right, Idaho Falls. We saw Twin Falls. So we stayed at KOA campgrounds when we took vacations with my family, my kids. 26 on the list. Back up in Arizona, we go into the northern part of Arizona. So I'm going to say Flagstaff, Arizona, and Kingman. I believe Kingman is in California, and then you cross over and you get into Flagstaff. That's where my daughter Sally went to college. Northern Arizona University. Pine trees all over. Beautiful area. Cold in the winter. But that was a vacation spot we visited. And then as you drive home, you go through Kingman, Gilly Bend, Williams, and then Holbrook. So that's a trip from, I live in Vista, California, all the way to Flagstaff, Arizona. It's about an 8-hour drive. And we went out there a couple of times for vacation spots to see my daughter, and we saw her graduate there. She met her husband there. Number 25 on my list, Colorado, Rocky Mountains National Park. It's right along the Continental Divide. You got forest, alpine, tundra. Rocky Mountain National Park, very picturesque. Then we drove into Denver, saw the Capitol. You got mountains all over the place. Reminds me of the Old West, Denver, Colorado. You got Lower Square. 19th century buildings are still up. And then from Colorado, you drive down into Colorado Springs, which is 6,000 feet above sea level. We drove through there. Then we drove through Pueblo, Trinidad, Boulder, and Grand Junction. So Colorado is a vacation spot. Comes in at number 25 on my list. 24, state of Illinois, Chicago. This is where I was born, but I've gone back there twice. And this time when I went back, I saw the house that I was born in, 3720 West 107th Street. And then I went by Wrigley Field and we went to a baseball game there. The Cubs, Chicago Cubs. So, Chicago, we lived in Evergreen Park, South Side. And we drove around, we saw Joliet, Illinois. And then we drove up into Wisconsin, which is close by. We visited Milwaukee, and that has the best zoo in the entire country, is Milwaukee City Zoo. By far the best zoo in the whole country. So we've done trips through there. So Illinois comes in at number 25. Or is that 24? That was 24 on my list. 23 on my list, New York. We took a trip there with my kids. Went to Macy's. We went to Ellis Island. And then we had to see the Statue of Liberty. That was a fun trip. We got there, and there's a big long line because you go into the Statue of Liberty and you climb the stairs. Well, the line is just like Disneyland. It's 1,000 people. So we're waiting and waiting. 2 hours, you go 10 steps. 2 more hours, you go 5 steps. So we went halfway. I think it was 4 hours, and we said, this is ridiculous. We're never going to make it to the top. So we turned around and went back down. So I never made it to the top of the Statue of Liberty because it was the steps. You're climbing the steps. 5 minutes, you go half a step. A half hour later, you go one more full step. It takes 1/2 hour to go one step in the Statue of Liberty. You're just standing there. So very picturesque. New York. Went to Macy's. Oh, and we also went to the Empire State Building. We went in there. Went to the top. You see the whole skyscrapers. Plan to go to New York City again. All right, 22 on my list. Georgia. This was what year was it? 1996. Went to Atlanta, Georgia. And you know what they had? The Olympics. The Summer Olympics was in Atlanta, Georgia, and we went. We went to one event. It was weightlifting, $10 a person. So there was 4 kids and my wife and I, $60 to go see 45 minutes of weightlifting. And all we saw was the guy had a weight bar, and he lifted it up over his head. I think it was 478 pounds he lifted and put it down, and he disqualified to go to the next round. That was our Olympic event. Should have gone to the stadium to watch the marathon or all the running, but we didn't do it. But anyway, that was our trip. Atlanta, Georgia. Went to the Waffle House for breakfast there. They're famous for Waffle Houses. All right, we toured Savannah, Georgia, old plantation houses. Charleston, we drove up through there. South Carolina. You have the French Quarter. We went over to Columbia. All you see is plantations, houses along the East Coast. Obviously, there's a lot of slave holders put their slaves to work on the plantation. You can visit plantations, but would you believe even in 1996, it was $20 a head? I have a family of 6. That's $120 to get in. I didn't do it. All right, we visited, so Charleston, Columbia, Charlotte, Myrtle Beach is up through there. 60 miles of beaches. I did not like Myrtle Beach. You know why? Wasn't that clean. It's kind of run down. So anyway, 22 on my list, Georgia. 21 on my list, Maryland. Baltimore, Maryland. We went to an Orioles game, Camden Yards. This is Baltimore is the birthplace of the United States national anthem. Let's see, drove around, went through there, and then on that trip we drove up into Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Saw the Independence Hall and Ben Franklin, and where they signed the Declaration of Independence and all up through there. Liberty Bell, the Constitution, the American Revolutionary sites. Went to a Phillies game in Philadelphia. So wherever we get a chance, we go to a ball game. Up through there, went to Gettysburg National Park. That's where the Civil War in Gettysburg was one of the most fiercest battles ever. Went through there, and then we drove around, went up into Newark, New Jersey. Not too impressed with Newark. And then came back down south, went into Virginia, saw Shenandoah National Park. So we took some of those trips. All right, that was number 21. Number 20, Massachusetts. Boston, Massachusetts, very liberal city. I didn't like it. There were toll roads everywhere. You drive 5 minutes, toll road, $2. Drive 6 minutes, toll road, $7. Drive 20 minutes, toll road, $3.50. So I think I went a total of maybe 50 miles and paid $25 in tolls. Come on, ripping me off. But Boston, went through there, site of the American Revolution, the Freedom Trail, went into Springfield, Massachusetts. That's where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. Let's see, drove around, went to Erie County, and then on that trip when we were in Massachusetts, from there, we drove cross country and went all the way back home. This is 1999. So from there, from Massachusetts, then you go into Pennsylvania, then you go into Ohio, then you get into Indiana. We saw Gary, Indiana, Davenport. Gary, Indiana. Just driving through. And then we kept driving, went through Des Moines, Iowa, kept driving, got into South Dakota, and Ziox Falls and Rapid City, South Dakota. Driving along, we saw Mount Rushmore National Park, or the National Monument. Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt are on Mount Rushmore. And that is a trivia question that everyone should know. Who's first? If you're looking at it from the ground, from left to right, what's the order? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, so saw that. So that's a unique trip that we took, 1999. Okay, number 19 on my list, Ohio. Cincinnati, Ohio. Just flew out there and we saw Cincinnati's Reds baseball game there. That's along the Rhine District, the Ohio River. We went into Cleveland. That's where they have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Went in there, saw that. It's on the Great Lakes. Drove over to Columbus, which is the state capital. And then we kind of peeked into Covington, Kentucky, just because I wanted to cross state lines. So that's a trip, number 19 on my list. When we get my top 10, you'll see what I really like. Okay, 18, Florida. Flew out. My sister lives in Jacksonville and Atlanta Beach area of Florida. So we've gone out there. You got Daytona Beach through there. You got St. Augustine up there along the coast. But then when you go down south, you have Cape Canaveral and Orlando, Florida. I went to Disneyland. I went to the Epcot Center. And in Cape Canaveral, you see the John F. Kennedy Space Center. A lot of sightseeing there. And then out of Port Canaveral, I've taken cruises. And out of Tampa, Florida, I've taken cruises. Okay, number 18. Number 17 on the list. Mexico. This is we live close to the San Diego cruise port. and we've taken 4 or 5, maybe 5 Mexican cruises. And so our vacation spot has been Cabo San Lucas, Mazatlan, and Puerto Vallarta. 7-day cruise, and you go down and you see it, do a lot of shopping. I bought chess sets. My wife has bought jewelry. So very beautiful. People think Mexico is rough. Yeah, the politicians are, but the country is beautiful down there. I've never been to Mexico City, but I've been to the coastal cities of Cabo San Lucas, Mazatlan, and Puerto Vallarta, okay? 16 on my list. Vacation spots. I'm gonna do something a little different here. I live in California, right? I've seen a lot of cities in California and done a lot of things. So I'm going to list all the cities that I've been to in California: San Diego, Anaheim, Irvine, Fullerton, Long Beach, Huntington Beach, Cypress, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, Ventura, Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, Oceanside, Carlsbad, Encinitas, La Jolla, El Cajon, Santee, National City, Chula Vista, Irvine, Santa Monica, Bonita, Sacramento, Stockton, Lodi, Visalia, Tulare, Fresno, Modesto, Merced, El Centro, San Clemente, Oxnard, San Juan Capistrano, Agua Dulce, Santa Maria, San Luis Obispo, Monterey, Carmel Valley, San Jose, Carpinteria, Cypress, Anaheim, Riverside, Fullerton, Chino, Bakersfield, Pomona, Altadena, Pasadena, Victorville, San Bernardino, Barstow, Needles, Yuma, Long Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Inglewood, Thousand Oaks, Lancaster, Palmdale, Poway, Mojave, Sequoia, Yosemite, Kings Canyon, Burbank, Simi Valley, Santa Clarita, Ramona Valley Center, San Ysidro, Imperial Beach, La Mesa, Spring Valley, Del Mar, Solana Beach, Cardiff by the Sea, Rancho Santa Fe, Fallbrook, Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, Lemon Grove, Sun City, Lake Elsinore, Data Point, Orange, Tustin, Corona, Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario, Buena Park, University City, Monterey Park, Hollywood, Bellflower, Sherman Oaks, Reseda, Woodland Hills, Lakewood, Granada Hills, Torrance, Glendale, Canoga Park, Chatsworth, Castilla, Lebec, Goleta, Camarillo, Solvang, Pismo Beach, Morro Bay, Santa Monica, San Simeon, Madero, Red Bluff, Redding. I've been to all the cities in California. A lot of traveling. Number 16. Number 15. Eastern Caribbean cruises. Honduras. I've been to the country of Honduras, Caribbean islands. Roatan is the name of the city. I've been to the Cayman Islands. I've been to Cozumel. And up through, I've been into the Bahamas, Grand Cayman. So 15 on my list, those Caribbean islands, small places. Grand Turk, I've been there. 14 on my list, southern part of Florida. The other part of Florida was Orlando, Jacksonville, and Atlantic Beach, Daytona Beach, San Augustine, and up through there. But the southern part has Miami and Miami Beach. Saw where the Miami Heat basketball team plays. So this Biscayne Bay in Miami Beach, very famous. We've taken cruises out of there, and you go to the Bahamas. We've seen St. Thomas. We've seen San Juan. We've seen Puerto Rico, Grand Turk. That was one of those cruises. So out of Miami, that's a spot you want to take. That's 14 on my list. Number 13. Florida, again, this is the central part. I mentioned Jacksonville, Atlanta Beach up through there. And I've mentioned Daytona Beach. But the other parts of Florida is in the central area. You drive through there. That's where St. Augustine, the oldest city in the United States, and they have a big fort there. So we've taken a trip through there. And also they have some remote islands you can take. So Crescent Beach, Castillos de San Marcos, Spanish fortresses up through there in the central part of Florida. So that's another trip. Number 12, I'm getting close to the top 10. Uh, Another trip is the west coast of Oregon. Remember I mentioned Portland, Salem, those areas. But this trip was a cruise. And you go to Astoria, Oregon, which is a beach town. The Columbia River Maritime Museum. And from there, on that cruise, we went up into Victoria, British Columbia. A lot of old Capitol buildings. And then we visited through Vancouver. And out of Vancouver is where we've taken our cruises and gone up into Alaska for 7-day cruises. I'll talk about Alaska in my top 10. Forgot to mention also that on this trip, one of the stops is San Francisco. We saw Alcatraz Island. Oh, I've seen that twice. I recommend that trip. The old military prison where all the convicts, and 3 of them escaped, and they don't know if they made it or not. Frank Morris and the gang. Okay, number 11. Dyersville, Iowa. That's where the Field of Dreams is located. I put that on my list. I haven't been there yet, but I'm going in 3 weeks. Dyersville, Iowa. I'm going to visit the Field of Dreams, a 1989 movie with Kevin Costner in the cornfields, and the White Sox, who were banished in 1919, never got to play baseball again because of gambling. And you know what happened? In the movie Field of Dreams, they got their wish. They came out of the cornfield and played on the Field of Dreams. If you will build it, he will come. Well, I'm going to go see that in 3 weeks. But I put it on my list. Dyersville, Iowa. It's near Dubuque, Iowa, right on the border of Illinois and Iowa. And that's going to be one of my favorite vacation spots when I get there. Number 10, here we go, the top 10. I haven't mentioned it. Niagara Falls comes in at number 10. Been there twice. And you go to the Ontario side, not the New York side. It's a long time to cross that border, but once you make it, amazing view. And can you believe that over 1 billion people have visited Niagara Falls? And the gallons of water that have rushed over year after year after year. And Niagara Falls is one of the wonders of the world. You have got to see it. So that was one of our glorious trips that we've taken. And that's in my top 10. Niagara Falls. My parents took us when I was a kid. So I've been there 3 times. As a kid, but I don't remember too much. But then I took my family and we saw it. And we just stood right on the edge of the water and watched it. And we just stood there for a half hour, mesmerized. Then I went back, just my wife and I, and saw it. And the water just flows over. We went up into one of the restaurants, and you have a bird's eye view of it. Incredible. Incredible area, Niagara Falls. Coming in at number 10. Number 9, Western Caribbean Cruises out of either Tampa Bay, Port Canaveral, or Miami Beach, Florida. And the cruises take you to Cozumel, Honduras, Cayman Islands, and Belize Island. And you go to Guatemala and Puerto Rico. So I put this number 9 on my list because we've done this a couple times and we've seen the Mayans temples. I climbed up one. Incredible, right in the middle of Guatemala, there's a Mayan temple. All around it is forest. So you take a bus ride and you get to a trail and then you walk a mile and right in the middle is a Mayan temple. And it's really high and you climb it. And when you look up, all you see is forest. Forest all around. That's all. No water, no oceans, no nothing. So they built a Mayan temple because they looked at the direction of the sun and they knew what day of the week it was and what time it was by the direction of the sun. If the sun was straight up, it was 12 noon. If it was coming down 3 hours later, it was 3 in the afternoon, and these Mayans knew it. And their roads, they built their roads out of rock in order to get to the Mayan temple. Incredible. So number 9 on my list. Number 8, Utah. Haven't mentioned the state of Utah, but I've been there a couple times. And what do they have in Utah? They have Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon National Park, Canyonlands National Park, and Arches National Park. And the formations are really nice. I've taken my kids there. We go camping. And then from there, it's just really, really a fun trip. Utah National Parks. And when we've gone there, we saw Salt Lake City, St. George, Beaver, and Provo. Those are the cities. Salt Lake City is a unique city. We went into the Salt Lake, and you just you go into the water, and then you lie on your back, and you float. There's no current. You just float in the Salt Lake. That was a weird experience. And then the city itself, all the roads are like a freeway, but they're a road in a small town. But in the town, the road looks like a freeway. 5 lanes. So on one side of the street, you have the houses, 5 lanes, but it's not a freeway. And on the other side, you have the houses. That's how wide the streets were. Salt Lake City, a very strange city where the Mormons are. We saw the tabernacle. Wouldn't want to live there, though. Number 7 on my list, New England. This is one of my favorite cruises I've taken. And you go out of Quebec City, Canada. Quebec. That's where you take the cruise out of. And my wife and I have flown out of there. And we saw Prince Edward Island. And we saw New Brunswick. We saw Nova Scotia. We saw Halifax. That's where the Titanic stopped as a cruise stop. Titanic stopped in Halifax. And then we saw Charleston Town, capital, Victorian houses and all that. Nova Scotia. I like Prince Edward Island. That was very picturesque. One ranch on there was 200 acres. It had a mansion. Then it had a barn. Then it had a lake. And then it just had 500 acres. I said, how much? I'll buy it. I think it was $250,000. You can get a mansion. You get a huge barn. You get a lake. And then you get all the countryside. And you get a wooden gate to get it, so it can block the entrance. $250,000. But I asked, what's it like in the winter? They said it's below 0 all winter. So no thanks. But in the summer, perfect. That almost looked like heaven. Prince Edward Island. Up there was some museums. The Dow Museum. The famous Dow Museum. Oh, I forgot her name. Slips my mind. It's a TV show. What's the name of that girl? It slips my mind. Anyway, that's up there in Prince Edward Island. Okay, that comes in number 7. Number 6, Washington, D.C. I've been there twice. My family went. My parents took me. I remember Abraham Lincoln statue. But then I went with my kids, my 4 kids, and we went. We toured around. We saw the Washington Monument, Jefferson Monument, Supreme Court, Smithsonian, the Capitol, the Library of Congress, Washington, D.C. I want to go again. This time I'll really study it. The other times we just kind of pass through and stay a day or two. But you got to stay 7 days to really see Washington, D.C. But I got that number 6 on my list as far as vacation spots, okay? Number 5. Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming at Grand Tetons National Park. First time I went was in 1979 with my wife. Stayed in the lodge. Then I took my kids and we went and camped in Yellowstone. You see Old Faithful. You see the waterfalls. You see the geysers. Then we went down into Grand Tetons National Park, and that is a classic mountain range. If you've seen the movie Shane, you'll see what Grand Tetons look like. We were on the road in my van. We were driving along, and there was a moose right in the middle of the road, right in our way, with his big, horns. I was going to get out and take a picture, but that's too dangerous. He may have charged me and hit me. So Grand Tetons National Park. That is one of the prettiest national parks I've been to. I've been to a lot of them. Okay. I forgot to mention that in the New England area that I visited, we also visited the state of Maine, and you have Acacia National Park, and you have Bar Harbor City right in one of the cruise stops. That was in New England. So just want to mention that. That was the New England vacation spot was number 7. Forgot to mention Bar Harbor and Acacia National Park. Number 6, Washington, D.C. Number 5, Yellowstone. Number 4, what comes next? Hawaii. Been there 3 times. First time, we took our family, stayed in Oahu, right near the ocean, and just toured. We rented a car and drove all the way around the island, from Oahu all the way to the top, and then all the way back down. Picturesque. Second time we went to Maui, and we stayed in a hotel on the beach, and then we drove all the way around the island. Hawaii is amazing. And the third time, my wife and I took a cruise, Hawaiian cruise, 7-day cruise, and that has stops in the 4 islands: Oahu, Maui, the Big Island, and then Kauai. And on Kauai is where they filmed the movie The Thornbirds, the famous beach scene. But each time, I think I rented a car in Kauai and drove all the way around the island. And in the Big Island, I drove all the way around the island. So all the 4 islands, I've driven and seen every part of all the Hawaiian islands. So that comes in at number 4 on my list. What beats it? Number 3, Alaska. Something about Alaska that is intriguing, whether it's the mountains, the snow, the landscape, the grandeur, the history. Something about Alaska. Now, I've taken cruises from Seattle, and what you do is you visit Ketchikan, Sagawau, Juneau, Anchorage, and Sitka, and the Inside Passage. I've taken 2 Alaska cruises, and I want to do it again. Anchorage was a very unique town. Eskimos and the mountains are everywhere, and it's green. I went to a restaurant in Anchorage, and I asked the locals, what's it like in the winter? It's below 0, and 4 hours of sunlight, and the rest of the time is dark. Then in the summertime, there's 4 hours of night, and the rest of the time is daylight. Strange place, Alaska. Oh, we saw Glacier Bay National Park. We saw Mount McKinley. We've seen Denali from the distance, but I haven't gone into the park. There's so much. Bears. Bears are everywhere in Alaska. Saw a couple. Whales, eagles, moose, seals, seabirds. You've got to take a trip to Alaska, but you got to go in the summertime. And when we went, it was 70 degrees. Perfect weather. Alaska comes in at number 3. Number 2, what beats that? Very strange right here. This one's very strange. There's one national park in this country that I've gone to the most. And every time I go, I just get that surreal feeling. It's just a very calming national park. It's beautiful. The weather is perfect. It's easy to get to. There are redwoods. There are forests. There are lakes. there is scenery, there are meadows, there's wildlife, there's recreation, there's just peace, world peace. And I've got it number 2 on my list. You know what I'm talking about? Kings Canyon National Park. It's in California. It's near the Sequoias. I've visited this park 4 or 5 times. You got the Grant Grove trees. But there's something about it. The mountains, the scenery, the rugged foothills, the deep canyons, vast caverns, redwoods, pine trees, the sequoias, something about it. The cabins, the campgrounds. It's you know, compared to Alaska, Hawaii, or Washington, or the big cities and all that, it doesn't compare. But to me, it's one of my favorite vacation spots. I'm going to go back again. I would like to buy a house, or maybe buy a cabin up there and just go up every 3 months for a week. Maybe that's in my dreams. Maybe that'll happen one day. But for now, Kings Canyon National Park, number 2 on my list. It's not the greatest park in the country, but it's easy to get to. And every time I go, it just enlivens my soul and it expands my horizons. All right, number 1. What's my favorite spot in this country, United States? Have I told you I haven't been to Europe yet? Maybe one day we'll get to Europe. What is number 1? Here's a hint. Baseball. What's the number 1 spot in this country for baseball? Where's the Hall of Fame? It's in Cooperstown, New York. Been there twice. Now I'm going to go back again. Why? Main Street is nostalgia. You feel like you're living in the 1800s. All the shops and all the restaurants are 100% baseball. Clothes shops, antique shops, sporting goods shops, even the little stores and the restaurants. Just baseball, 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 baseball. Cooperstown, New York. You got the Baseball Hall of Fame. I took my kids there. We saw it. Got the Cooperstown Village. You've got surrounding meadows, trees. They built a ballpark out there. And they have the Hall of Fame ceremony there once a year. I haven't gone to that. That would be something to do. But you got lakes. You got, bed and breakfast areas. It's preserving the history of our national pastime. That's what Cooperstown, New York is. I'm a baseball fan, obviously. But Cooperstown is way out. It's up northern part of New York. It's hard to get to. You have to go through all the country roads and drive and drive and drive. And then when you get there, it's just you've gone back into time. And you're not living in the 21st century. You're living in the 1800s when you visit Cooperstown. I like it. It's a kind of a different feeling. You walk around. How about that? That comes in at number 1 on my list. Cooperstown, New York. What do you think of my top 50? Travel, it's a lot of fun. Did it with my family, with my parents. And then I did it with my kids, our 4 kids. And now my wife and I are retired. Maybe in the future we'll do some traveling with our grandkids. In fact, we're going to have a family reunion coming up. We're going to Indio, which is near Palm Springs. We're going to have a family reunion. We're all going to stay in the house. I have 4 kids. Well, 3 kids will be there with their spouses. And 6 of my 7 grandchildren will be there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So that'll be there's my wish. I'm going to have a vacation with my grandkids. All right, Ken Artizone, top 50 vacation spots. Thanks for watching. I'm out.